Welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. Sorry that I was not able to stream yesterday. Welcome, everybody. 1 second. Cosmic Seeking. Heat. Gary Bennett. Just give me one second. Blue Brother. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. Michael Hassler, welcome. Good evening. So they finally got rid of George Santos. It was about time for my German view. It's the advantages and disadvantages. Well, I mean, the procedure is there to be used. The procedure is there to be used. On one hand, it's really good to expel him. He's basically an imposter. On the other hand, the instrument of expelling a member can be easily abused. Yeah, but that's like with everything, right? So then by that standard, by that standard, then like we shouldn't have, you know, any removal processes or any procedures to do things like that, right? Like by that standard, we shouldn't have systems in place to impeach a president, so on and so forth, right? Just seems like it just seems like it was inevitable simply because for no other reason other than it was just so blatant. It was so blatant that like there was no other choice. That's it. Yes, exactly. Heat. A very obvious, very obvious case of just like gross corruption. Um. So yeah, the George Santos eviction was nice. Yeah, eventually, I mean, that's where it was going to lead to. They had no other choice. And don't get me wrong, the reason why this happened was because like it was just way too open. That's it. It was just way too open, way too out in the open. Because like I guarantee that if like this corruption was kept like on the down low, then none of these people would be. This wouldn't be a story. He would be fine. Ali with the 12 biddies, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope you're well. Yes, I'm doing good. All right, folks, we got a few things, a few things to start going through. Also, hey, folks, at the end of this month, we will have a holiday themed movie in the Discord. As we are trying our best. We're trying our best to kind of do at least some kind of movie night or something at the end of each month. Last month as if that wasn't that long ago. Last movie night event we played we played Jumanji. And this movie month or this movie event will be holiday themed. So if you want to join in on that, then yeah. Make sure you join the Discord. In Germany, the Weimar and later during the Nazi regime had the ability of expelling members of parliament was abused widespread. Okay, and that doesn't mean there shouldn't be methods in place to remove Congress people, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. So, like, if you have a corrupt congressperson, like, they're just going to stay there. There's no remedy for that. Is that what you're saying? Because, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. That's like saying, like, oh, well, because there's a potential for political abuse, which there technically could be. There technically could be. That's like saying that we shouldn't have ways or methods to impeach a president or to impeach a Supreme Court justice, for that matter. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, technically, could it be abused? Yeah, I guess so. But what do we do? Should we just not have that ability? My recommendation: Die Hard. That's funny. Oh man. So I'm kind of reserved when it comes to this option since it was abused to remove even many correct politicians. Yeah, but like there still should be like methods to remove politicians, right? So it doesn't make any sense. And in this case, this wasn't like a misuse of that option. So this whole conversation is kind of moot, right? Like, it would be one thing if It'd be one thing if there was like no reason to expel George Santos. Like if there wasn't any reason and they just like expelled him for the sake of expelling him, then yeah, like that would kind of be a problem, right? But that's not what happened. The procedure was used as intended. How come Trump was impeached 2 times and he was not removed? Because the way you impeach a president here is it goes through the whole impeachment thing in Congress, and then there's the Senate then has to also essentially convict based on the arguments brought by the House. So it's like think of it as like a trial, right? Think of it as a trial. The House of Representatives votes for articles of impeachment, and if those articles of impeachment are passed, then the House acts like a prosecutor and has to present that case to the Senate. And if the Senate finds or votes to convict, then that means the president is removed or whoever's getting impeached, right? That's how that works. Because immediately after the GOP Senate does not vote to convict, Mitch admitted Trump is morally corrupt, but not to lose the presidency. Well, yeah, because the Republican Party is Trump's party. Like, there's no significant difference, right? There's no difference between Trump's there's no difference between Trump and the Republican Party. He is the Republican Party, is what I'm trying to say. So at the time, if I'm correct, at the time the Senate did not have enough votes to convict him. Echo Russell Dragon, how's it going? Yes, George Santos is out. That's right. All these George Santos emotes. That's too funny. They can't dump Trump because he is Trump. The GOP, the GOP can't dump Trump because they are Trump, and Trump is the GOP. Like that, he is the party. Like there's no point in trying to differentiate that because he is the party. I can't remember which parliament, but I remember that Republicans tried to expel 2 members not that long ago. If I remember correctly, it was because they opposed a certain law. Yes. So I think what you're referring to was a state legislature that tried to censure or expel, or I can't remember the exact time. I believe it was in Tennessee, because they opposed gun, or they were protesting because there wasn't enough being done for gun control. And I think there were 3 members of that state legislature that were removed. I think they were all put back, or 2 out of the 3 were put back, reinstated. Because I think you can. It just depends on how the state legislature works, but yeah, it was about gun control. Yes, I believe then that's the story in Tennessee. It was a state legislature that voted to remove 3 state representatives because they were protesting because there wasn't anything being done. But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be mechanisms in place to remove Congress people, right? Like this situation happened on the state level, right? So that's a different ball game, but I guess the concept remains the same. There should be methods to remove Congress people or representatives. Period. If one side, usually the right wing, decides to abuse that, then that's kind of a verdict on the right wing, not on the actual, like system itself. That's an obvious example of easily this instrument can be abused. Not easily. You have to have a super majority. And at the end of the day, they can always run. They can always run again. They can always run again and win. In this case, I believe the Tennessee 3 were reinstated, I think. Okay, so both that ended up being expelled were reinstated by the local officials. So there are, like, in this case, there are fail-safes put in place in case something like this happens, right? So again, like, the notion is that, like, you think that there is a possibility for abuse, okay, but does that mean we shouldn't have it? And does that mean we shouldn't use it? Because, like, if that's, if anything, that's saying more about the Republican Party than it is about, like, the actual method or the actual system in place. We have to have some standards too. Our best bet is making sure people see shenanigans the Republicans are pulling constantly. Yeah. All right. I'm on my computer and I can't even blame autocorrect. That's okay. All right, let's get started, folks. We got a few things to go through, yeah? We have a few things to go through and not enough time. By the way, Fox News said no hotels in Massachusetts for Army, Navy game except 2695 hotels in the state. What? No hotels? Oh, you mean like everybody already booked everything? Or are they literally saying that there are no physical hotels? $2,695 in Massachusetts physical hotels. So you're saying that Fox News is saying that there's literally no physical hotels in Massachusetts? That's wild. So you need to make it more specific. What crimes exactly someone needs to be convicted of in order to get expelled? Obviously, an accusation can't be enough, right? But in this case, there wasn't just accusations, right? Like, they did we have an entire committee dedicated to investigate, like, ethical violations, right? Like, that's how this whole thing got started. The House Ethics Committee found substantial evidence to suggest that George Santos allegedly did a lot of financial shenanigans, on top of the fact that he's actually being investigated, like, by the Department of Justice for said financial shenanigans. I mean, so yeah, it's not just like, oh, we're just gonna say that this just happened, but no, there's an entire process that goes behind this, and it's generally done It's generally done by the House Ethics Committee. Definitely fabricated a bunch of bull. Yes. Yes, he did. From the beginning, from the get-go. The new Trump speech in Iowa whining that Scarface was indicted once, but why him 4 times? because he allegedly engaged in criminal activity. That's why he's indicted. So I looked more into the Fox News stories. It's that there's no it's not that there's no physical hotels. It's not that there's no physical hotels. It's that a lot of reservations have been canceled because I guess because there's like a lot of people. But of course, Fox News takes the xenophobic approach and says it's because the hotels are being used for migrants. That's what Fox News is saying. They're saying that there's no hotel reservations because they're being used for migrants. And I got you, George Santos. Expulsion was right. My question is, how do you want to prevent Tennessee from occurring again? Well, that's a state legislature, and they already have guardrails because you could be reinstated by your local officials. So if there is a situation where like an expulsion happens, I guess there are ways of reinstating, at least in that situation, because you're talking about a state legislature. That's different from a federal. That's different from the federal level. But in that case, there were already guardrails in place. They were reinstated. Their local officials had that ability. In this case, I think like you just have to run again. If you get expelled from Congress, it's not like you are unable to run again. You can run again. Guitar story? Not sure. Welcome, Conscious Canuck. All right. I get your opinion. Let's agree to disagree. That's not my opinion. It's not an opinion. It's what happened. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. Conscious Canuck. Oh man. It's not an opinion. It's just literally what happened. They were reinstated by their local officials. If you get expelled by Congress at the federal level, like George Santos did, you can run again. Ali with the 12 biddies. As we all know, Trump gives delusional speeches. Yeah, like there's no point in covering any Trump's speeches. There's literally no point in listening to the same very into listening the same very stable genius dribble over and over again about how he's being persecuted, how there's a witch hunt, how the radical left is destroying the country, how he did everything right and they still indicted him. I don't know. Like, there's literally no point in listening to any of his speeches. There's no point in covering any of his speeches. Um, it's just the same BS. Welcome, bipedal meatbag. Do y'all think he'd run again? George Santos? No, I don't think so. With George Santos out of the Congress, special elections to fill a seat is set for February. Yeah, like literally within a couple months. Boom. And you can run in that special. If you're George Santos, you can run in that. Technically. He has turned up the fascism, though. True. He has. I think he's emboldened because he's got nothing left to lose, literally. For Democrats, the election will be a test of the party's ability to flip districts around New York City that's seen as vital to their plans to retake control. Republicans are entering the contest with heavy momentum in the city's suburbs and will fight to hold onto the districts they look to maintain the narrow House majority. Well, we'll see. It just ends another chapter in the endless soap opera known as the U.S. Congress. the old and the feckless. I can see Santos running for governor. No, I think he's done. Okay, I think he's done. Because like even if he were to run again for some wild reason, nobody's gonna vote for him. Nobody's gonna vote for him. No, I don't think so. I'd almost bet that the Republican voters would vote him again. They got no sense of the truth. Yeah, but maybe if they have other options, like they like even the Republican Party has already like technically like blacklisted this dude. So I don't know. I mean, it's hey, listen, these people vote for literally Trump. These are the type of people who would literally look at like someone like Trump and be like, yeah, that's a solid choice. So I don't know. Didn't say he'd win. That's true. That's true. I don't know why he'd even bother. I don't know why George Santos would even bother. He's got other problems. Okay, he's got a Department of Justice investigations for the fraud shenanigans he committed. So I don't know. Besides, I don't think he actually said he was going to run. Like I literally think he's just gonna bow out and that's it. Kathy Hochul said February 13th as the date for the special election. Gotcha. Globus, welcome. Said he isn't going to run again? There you go. Well, there's your answer. Former Representative Tom Suozzi has emerged as a potential frontrunner nominee for the Democrats. Suozzi has 61 has previously represented the district for 6 years, which would help with the name recognition. It can mean he has the organizational capabilities to quickly stand up a campaign. Yeah, I mean, if like what kind of policies does he support? That's what I said. Almost bet I wouldn't place any money. That is a cool emoji. All right. Let's get started, folks.
I think that the Florida statute itself is unconstitutional, giving that kind of power to the party. The party itself is a political committee. It's not a government agency, but it's playing a quasi no right to block democracy this way. It has a responsibility to the public good. And we all know that we're living at a time when our democracy itself is in crisis. We all know that the threats.
Like, okay, so just to be like upfront and clear, none of these two, and especially not Cenk, none of these two have like basically any shot on in the primary. However, I think that the concept and the thought behind it, I think warrants merit to think about. When was this? Very recently. This was very recent. I think she's way more patriotic for some reason.
To democracy of them that are represented by people such as Donald Trump. But the irony here, of course, is that the Democratic Party claims to be trying to protect democracy, but their way of doing it is to suppress democracy.
There should be a Democratic primary. I agree. I agree. Functionally, I think that that's exactly what should happen. No doubt.
You just watched a clip from a joint town hall between two of Biden's 2024 presidential primary opponents, Marianne Williamson and Cenk Uygur.
Well, two is the only two, right? Those are literally the only two people that are running right now, right? Because it's just Biden, Cenk, and Biden, Cenk, and Williamson, right? I think that there's no other. Who else? Who else is running? RFK bowed out. Oh, that's right, Dean Phillips. My bad. There's four people. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, just Dean Phillips. Okay, you're right. That's still assuming the U.S. is a real democracy. It's not. Yep. West and the Minnesotan Dean Phillips. No. West is not running as a Democrat. West is running as independent. Dean Phillips is running as a Democrat. So that's the last one. There's Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, Cenk, and Phillips. I think that's it.
Uygur. Now, Marianne Williamson was speaking about the Florida Democratic Party's decision to unilaterally cancel.
That's what I meant. I missed you said Democrat. Gotcha. No worries.
The 2024 primary before a single vote has been cast, and both Williamson and Uygur are.
Hold on. Let me just rewind that because that's important. That's RFK Jr. is Democrat. No, he's running as an independent. He's running as an independent.
Florida Democratic Party's decision to. You just watched a clip from a joint town hall between two of Biden's 2024 presidential primary opponents, Marianne Williamson and Cenk Uygur. Now, Marianne Williamson was speaking about the Florida Democratic Party's decision to unilaterally cancel the 2024 primary before a single vote has been cast. And both Williamson and Uygur are rightfully pissed off. In fact, we all should be.
Right. So again, the fact that like the Florida Democratic Party decided to unilaterally cancel the primary without like a single vote being cast is pretty messed up, okay? And that is a testament to how problematic this system is here. Because neither the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Committee, the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee, none of them are actually required to hold elections or required to hold primaries. And that in and of itself is a massive problem because then things like this happen. If they just unilaterally to make this decision, then fundamentally they are just saying that we don't need we don't need to hear from our Democratic constituents. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. I don't understand Cenk's reasoning to run. I don't either, other than like he's got a book to sell. That's all I can say. Because it makes no dang sense. Okay? It makes no sense. It shouldn't be open and shut. That Biden just gets it. Yeah, like they're not even holding. They're not even holding the primary, which is a big problem in my opinion. A big problem. Our democracy is a sham. Say it ain't so. Maybe because TYT is getting unpopular and new book. I mean, I would say more like he needs to go like around the country and I guess promote his book or something. Because like at any given point, like their network is pretty, I guess, big. But hey, Cenk's got a new book.
Politico reports Florida appears poised to hold no presidential primary election for Democrats this cycle after the state party submitted only President Joe Biden's name as a candidate up for nomination. Now, as journalist Ryan Grimm adds, here's the moment where the Florida Democratic Party nominated Biden. I'm told by a party member that it was not explained to people that by nominating him, that also would keep other candidates off the ballot. Even enthusiastic supporters of Biden would not have purposefully canceled the primary. So whether or not this is a case of corruption or incompetence or perhaps both, that remains to be seen. But I don't really care. I don't care why they did this. They have to undo it. You don't get to unilaterally give Biden the state's pledged delegates before voters even have the chance to make their voices heard.
Right. Also, like, never mind the fact that, like, basically the Democratic primary is essentially like the Democratic primary is essentially runs like our elections, where it's not it's not always. So it's determined by how many delegates you have, and there is such a thing called super delegates, which could push effectively for all. Like, another way of putting it is the super delegates can put their thumb on the scale and essentially give the nomination to one candidate or another. Yes, that is something that the DNC has exclusively. Unless they change and amend the Constitution, there isn't a way he can run. That's right. That's actually something I didn't know before. I thought that at least for the party which currently doesn't appoint the president, wasn't mandatory. Yeah, no, there's no, like, technically there's no primary. Technically, there's no primary that they have to have. Like, literally, if the Democratic Party like woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, it's not going to be just Florida, the entire like primary is off. The entire primary is off, and like that's it. That's the end of the story. Like, they could literally just technically do that. They want Biden so he can continue to commit genocide. Well, I mean, to be fair, that's happening with Biden or not. That doesn't seem like that's going to stop. What's funny is that they call themselves Democrats and super delegates violate democracy. Right? It's like super electoral electoral college votes. I'm pretty sure that without the super delegates, Hillary Clinton would have lost the primary. Maybe so. But, you know, like I said, the Democratic primary has that. And they can literally just do that. Okay? I mean, like, to be fair, again, they could just snap their fingers and, like, that's it. There's no there's no primary. They could literally just do that. Been listening, just having a bad day and going to work, so I'm gonna lurk. That's okay. I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you have a better day. That's right, Queen Hillary. It's her time. Or sorry, it's her turn.
That decision remains solely with voters. And you might be thinking, well, I mean, why does it even matter? Because Biden's going to win the primary there anyway, so why even bother holding a primary?
Well, it doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter. There should still be votes. So what should any president do to stop it? Basically, my as far as like U.S. foreign policy goes is to literally call up Netanyahu and say, if you don't stop this shit, then we are going to make a public announcement saying that we are no longer going to support we're no longer going to support you militarily or financially going forward. So yeah, stop this now, or we're going to make it public, and like that's that. you Netanyahu would do like an about face if he got a call from the president of the United States saying that you need to stop this, or else we're going to make it publicly, like a public announcement, saying that we're no longer going to support you. That's it. No more weapons, no more money, no more funding. Then like, yeah, he that would do the trick. That would do the trick, in my opinion. At least as far as like what we can do as the United States.
Now, let me just say this. If he's going to win, then certainly you have no reason to go out of your way to rig the primary against his opponents. But second of all, and most importantly, inevitability is not a justification for the cancellation of an entire fucking primary.
Yeah, like, that's wild. That is wild that, like, they just actually, like, has that, I don't think, again, this is just, like, me just thinking about it, as far as I've been able to be civically engaged in politics, I don't think I've ever had a situation where the primaries were just canceled. They're like, yep, that's it. As far as I've been able to be civically engaged, I've never I've never had that happen. I'm Jewish and I don't agree with Israel's government. Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of Jewish people don't agree with Netanyahu. But I'm saying what we can do as the United States. Also, what do you expect from a nation that committed and commits genocide on its native population? Well, yeah, I mean, that's a thing that happened. Hello, One Day account.
The process matters. Giving voters the ability to make their voices heard matters. Even authoritarian regimes hold elections. For example, Kim Jong-un supposedly won his last election in North Korea with 99% of the vote. Now, just in case there's any question, no, he didn't actually get 99% of the vote. The election is obviously rigged. So the question is, why even bother going through the process if he and everyone else already knows the outcome? And it's because cultivating legitimacy matters. Demonstrating to citizens that there is a process in place that is followed and that there are rules in place that are followed is how you build legitimacy for the state.
Well, the thing is, like, it is actually a legitimate, and I mean legitimate because, like, it's within their technicality in their rules that the Democratic Party can just say, like, we're not having these primaries. And that's the problem, right? That's fundamentally the problem, is that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party can technically do that. That's what's the problem here. At the heart of this is really that's the problem, that they can legitimately say tomorrow, like, yeah, you know what, we're not even gonna bother. Like, don't even bother. Okay, don't even bother about the primaries. Biden is the nominee, or whoever it is, it's the nominee, and like that's that. The fact that they can do that is the problem. Biden just said if Trump wasn't running, he wouldn't be either. No way. Like, actual quote, or paraphrase or whatever. I mean, like, I'm not surprised that Biden would say something like that, but
It's how you get people to buy into the political process and believe that things matter. Any political scientist will tell you the importance of legitimacy.
Yeah, it's a private party and we're not invited. Yeah, apparently, if you're, especially if you live in
Democrats in Florida.
Yeah, especially if you live in Florida, like, definitely not. Wow.
Apparently can't even grasp a simple concept that literal totalitarian leaders are able to grasp. But this isn't North Korea, and that's not a very good comparison, because elections here matter, or at least they're supposed to, but apparently Florida Democrats didn't get the memo. Now, Dean Phillips, another Biden primary opponent, was also pissed off, and rightfully so. Politico continues, the move to leave Representative Dean Phillips off the primary ballot left the Minnesota Democrat enraged on Thursday. In a statement first provided to Politico, Phillips, who has launched a long-shot primary bid against Biden, accused Florida Democratic Party officials of rigging the primary. He threatened a lawsuit and a convention fight if he didn't win ballot access in the state. Quote, Americans would expect the absence of democracy in Tehran, not Tallahassee, said Phillips. The intent.
I mean, my guy, you could have just said, like, Americans expect, like, the absence of democracy from, like, the Republican Party, but, like, Jesus, come on, man. In 1992, Republicans canceled 8 state primaries to make it easier. Yeah, and that's wrong. Democrats in 8 states canceled primaries in 96 to make Clinton's second term easier to find. Yeah. And that's wrong. That's wrong. Again, this I was way too young. Yeah, I was way too young to be civically engaged during those times. But I would be pissed if I had the ability to vote in a primary in 1996 and like the Democratic Party was like, nah. I would not be happy.
Intentional disenfranchisement of voters runs counter to everything for which our Democratic Party and country stand. Our mission as Democrats is to defeat authoritarianism, not become them. In his statement, Phillips called the handling of the process by the Florida Democrats a blatant act of electoral corruption and demanded Biden condemn and immediately address it. The Biden campaign did not provide a comment for this story. Nikki Fry, the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, contended the party followed its standard process that was outlined on its website. Quote, we are dismayed by Dean Phillips' conspiratorial and inappropriate comments comparing the state of Florida to the Iranian regime as part of his knee-jerk reaction to long-established procedures, Fry said.
Yeah, that's the problem. If this is a long-standing procedure that you have written into your rules, that's a problem, dude. That's exactly what the issue is at heart here. Okay? The issue being that if at the flick of at the snap of a finger, then like the primaries are off, then like, dude, that's not cool. That's not cool.
Quote, this is unbecoming of someone running for higher office. I'm sorry, but that comment is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous and false. And I shouldn't have to say this, but he's not being conspiratorial if you literally did the thing that he said you did. Now, I am no fan of Dean Phillips. I think that that's probably obvious to anyone who knows my policy positions, but he's right on the principle, and I support what he's saying here. Everything he's saying is correct. This is not okay. Florida Democrats, they just straight up canceled a primary.
Yeah, so again, essentially it's not because like I care about like Marianne Williamson or Biden or Cenk Uygur or Dean Phillips. It's not because like necessarily like, oh man, my guy's gonna lose. Or whatever. It's the principle. Mike Figueroa is right. It's the principle. It's the idea that at any given point in the election, the party that's supposed to represent you is gonna just be like, I guess we don't really need to hear from our constituents, right? Do we? Nah. Let's just cancel it.
Primary and disenfranchised every Democratic Party voter, and now they're calling one of the candidates who was fucked over conspiratorial for calling them authoritarian. I mean, they have no shame. Now,
it's not a sports game. Also, these are the same people that are going to demand that we vote next year, right? Like how it's really, 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 really absurd that this is the position that the Democratic Party has decided to find itself in. It's absurd. It's absurd. There's no other word I can find for it right now.
Not just anti-democratic, despite democracy literally being in their fucking name, they're also hypocrites as well. Cenk Uygur pointed this out on Twitter, saying, Democrats, democracy is on the line. Also Democrats, we're canceling elections in the primary. Translation, we had to destroy democracy in order to save it. And he's exactly right. How can you correctly call out the threat that Trump poses to our democracy only to then cancel a primary yourselves? It's outrageous to me. But I do want to get to more from that town hall between Williamson and Uygur, because they're going to describe their action plan, because they're not just going to take this lying down. And I'm glad that that's the case. But here's what they say.
It's wrong. And it's also undercutting of the most basic rights. If we cannot assume that the
vote shaming has already started. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with vote shading. Vote shading. I guess you are kind of throwing shade at people. Vote shaming. I don't agree with that. When it comes to the Democrats, I wish that Gavin Newsom someday become a real candidate. I mean, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. We need a real progressive. we need a real progressive Democrat to really win the primary, or really win the nomination for president. That would be phenomenal. The NC changed the name to Super Delegates to Unpledged Delegates in 2016. Really? Really? I guess the outrage that people brought during that Bernie run, he did great against DeSantis, though. That's true. Although to be fair, it's Ron DeSantis, so I certainly would hope so. Certainly would hope so. But yeah.
People of the United States have fair and equal access to knowing even who their candidates are, then we don't have fair and equal access to the vote. And this is why this is a transgression of the 14th Amendment. And this is what we will be claiming in court. If
the problem is, I mean, maybe, you might have to fight it out in court. But the problem is that these are private entities. The problem is that these are private entities and do whatever they want. Unpledged delegate is defined as party leader, elected official, someone who's automatically seated at the convention, or, a super delegate. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good one, Echo Resto Dragon.
Both Dean, all of us, Dean and Cenk and myself, are going to take all legal action that we can and that we feel is necessary. We're going to communicate to the public, and we.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, I don't know if I finished the thought process, but yeah, I don't know if I don't know if the constitutionality argument works, because like they're private entities, and that in and of itself is a problem. Because they can do whatever they want. Gotta play that meme. All right. In Florida, they're not even doing a Dem primary, and all the delegates are going to Biden.
I know all three of us appreciate that you are here. You can't let these so-called little transgressions pass. We have to hold a line right here. This is not just about the fact that it's 200 and some odd delegates. It's not just the fact that it's drama going on within the Democratic Party. This is the chipping away of our democracy. And as Cenk pointed out, what an irony that the party called the Democratic Party, the party that claims to be the champion of democracy, has basically decided that Joe Biden will be the candidate. Now, this is authoritarianism, just as Cenk said. When I was a child, we were told that in the Soviet Union, people could vote, but they were told who their options were. And that's exactly what's happening here. And you have over 70% of Democratic voters who have made it clear time and time again that they want to hear other options. In this case, other options exist. And at this point, the Democratic Party, the state of Florida itself, have no right to manipulate the circumstances so in such a way that people are denied access to who their candidates are, and to hear from us and to know that we're about. Unfortunately, this is part of a larger concerted effort that the Democratic Party has been taking. This has to do with media suppression. It has to do with invisibilization, erasure, but it stops right here, or at least it will not go unchallenged.
Nancy argued that they can pick their candidates however they want, and our votes are only a suggestion. Yeah. Vote for Biden is what the Dems and the NC want, still better than Trump. Yeah, but that's not good enough. That's not an excuse to do what, that's not an excuse to do what they're doing, right? That's not in fact, I would argue, like how dare you? How dare you to try to pull this shit now? If that's the case, if you truly believe that Trump and the Republican Party is so dangerous, why would you pull this shit now? If you are recognizing that the Republican Party is such a threat, and you are recognizing correctly that, Trump and the Republican Party pose a significant threat, why would you do this right now? Why would you choose to behave in this way? Like that answer is no longer good enough.
Right here by myself, and I think I hear the same kind of conviction in Cenk's voice. We certainly have heard it from Dean as well, and I'm with him 100%. And all of us will do what we feel we have to do, and I think that we're the ones who are standing up for democracy in this case, not the Democratic Party.
Well said. And look, this is not the first time that Democrats have attacked democracy. In 2016, DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz was literally forced to resign in shame after she was caught red-handed sabotaging Bernie Sanders. And she was the person who was supposed to make sure that the process was fair. It was her job to remain neutral. That was the obligation of the DNC charter that she refused to follow, hence why she was forced to resign. So this is not a new phenomenon. But it's not acceptable, and Democratic Party voters should never accept this. Now, one last thing that I want to say is that when you look at hypothetical matchups between Biden and Trump, aggregate polling data currently shows that Biden is losing to Trump. I repeat, Biden would lose to Donald Trump if the election were held today. Now, this is not a fucking game. Voters should have the option to nominate someone else who has a better chance of beating Trump in 2024. Now, odds are that even if the primary was perfectly fair, Biden would still likely coast through the primary again due to that incumbency advantage. But Democrats do not have the right to take away our ability to choose a candidate that we believe is better positioned to defeat Trump in 2024. And the fact that they think that they do speaks to their hubris, and it's part of the reason why we got Trump in the first place in 2016. They should have learned that when you fuck over your own voters and spit in their eyes, that is going to backfire. And they're doing it again when the stakes couldn't be higher. So this is something that is obviously not acceptable, and it cannot stand. And despite my disagreements with Uyghur, Phillips, and Williamson as well, I absolutely support their effort to stop this, and you should too.
Yeah, so again, this has nothing, fundamentally, this has nothing to do with like Cenk Uyghur or Williamson or Phillips. It's the principle, because they keep doing this shit. None of this has changed, even from back then. None of this has changed. This is unacceptable. Yeah, they've learned nothing from 2016. They learned not to leave the choice up to chance. Their preferred candidate had a real chance of losing the primary. Not just that, the DNC propped up Trump and Ben Carson, thinking they'd be easier to beat. Even if Biden left, which Trump admitted, Trump wants only his ways. Okay, but how does that matter with the situation at hand? With the Democratic Party canceling a primary? Like, that's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable move.
Everybody who cares about democracy should be consistent, and they should call out the people who are a threat to democracy, regardless if they're Republicans or Democrats. And I hope that any liberals who see this will follow suit and also condemn the Democratic Party in Florida here, because what they did is completely egregious.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. All right. Before we continue, I'll play the meme, okay? Because this is funny. All right.
Shit about I'm your host.
This is objectively funny, okay? It's definitely akin to being in an abusive relationship, the gaslighting stuff that is. Yeah. Didn't say it could be overruled, but probably not. Well, no, I don't. It doesn't seem like they care. Who's more powerful than the RNC? I don't care about the RNC. And they are the donors, right? So that's a problem, right? How could these people then have the audacity to then face the public and say, like, well, then you should vote for us, right? As always, it's a really good discussion. I get to bed now. See you soon. Thank you. I appreciate it. The DNC and RNC are doing exactly what their donors want. Yeah, and that's a problem.
All right, welcome back to Debates That Nobody Really Gives a Shit About. I'm your host, Sean Hannity, and tonight we have the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. Let's begin.
Jesus Christ.
All right, first question. Have you ever betrayed the greatest president to ever live, President Donald J. Trump?
No.
What kind of question is that? What the hell?
Very simple question, but let's try the next one. Are you a short, insecure little man that likes to wear lifts inside your cowboy boots? Yes or no answer, please.
Nope.
You know what? My wife bought me those lifts, and I happen to like them. Okay?
He's even using a stepping stool. I can see it from over here.
Governor, we clearly said no step stools. You either get off of it or you're leaving the stage right now.
That's too funny. That's too funny. By the way, just in case, like, Okay, this was a repost from Donald Trump. And their very viewers are very old and deaf. Yeah, that almost made me deaf. Alia with the 12 biddies, thank you. Biden is in Massachusetts for fundraising. Hey, would you be like mad if they just like decided to cancel the primary in Massachusetts? Because like I would be mad. No, come back. There we are. All right, let's take a look at this 38-second clip. Phenomenal stuff coming from the speaker here. Most would be, yeah, and you should be too. Broadcasting there for these epically old. Soon you'll be watching it with the sound off. True.
The American people, trust the American people to draw their own conclusions. They should not be dictated by some narrative and accept that as fact. So they can review the tapes themselves. We're going through a methodical process of releasing them.
The context is he's being asked about the January 6 tapes. Just to be clear.
As quickly as we can. As you know, we have to blur some of the faces of persons who participated in the events of that day because we don't want them to be retaliated against and to be charged by the DOJ and to have other concerns and problems.
So here's a question: like, isn't that admitting that you're obstructing potential investigations if you're engaged in this behavior? By admitting that, like, you don't want the DOJ to prosecute these people who are committing crimes, like these insurrectionists? Wouldn't that by, like, default be obstruction? Or, like, another way of thinking about it is, like, wouldn't that be also acting as an accomplice? The GOP can get more of the voters arrested by showing the January 6 videos. Newsflash, the DOJ has subpoena power. That is true, but, the point being is that since he's trying to protect... That is true, but he's trying to protect these insurrectionists. Because, like, hey, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of people to sift through and a lot of data to sift through. And it is not an easy task. And, hey, it is quite possible it is quite possible that you may miss some of these insurrectionists. And that's why they've set up, like, a hotline. I don't know if that's still a thing, but where if you recognize some of these people, you can forward that to the FBI. So yeah, he is essentially aiding and abetting these insurrectionists.
So that's a slow process to get it done. We're working steadily on it. We've hired additional personnel to do that.
And also, hey,
all of those things ultimately at the end will be out, so everybody.
Johnson voted no to expel Santos. Wow. Phenomenal. Also, to like add to that, if they didn't do anything wrong, why would you blur their faces, right? There's no crimes being committed, right? play a random riff. All right. We'll get through some of these articles. Was that organization that was parsing all the hundreds of hours of video and correlating all levels of participation? Wasn't it not ProPublica? Was it ProPublica? No, I feel like there was another one. I can't remember.
They can see them and draw their own conclusion. Let me go across the.
Yeah, so I mean, effectively, just like aiding and abetting, domestic terrorists, right, insurrectionists, and effectively aiding and abetting insurrectionary behavior. Phenomenal stuff coming out of the second in line to the presidency, right? Somebody was doing it, which is why the FBI was able to process so many arrests. Man, I could have sworn it was ProPublica. They like literally had hours of this footage. I'm pretty sure it was ProPublica. I like when this was all going down. It was pretty fast, by the way. The way they like collected all the video. It was pretty fast. It was available pretty freaking fast. And I remember seeing the website. It kind of had like a red border or like red color tones on the website. I can't remember exactly though. If GOP wants to lose, fine with me. Well, unfortunately, this is not a losing issue for them, right? They see like the January 6th insurrectionists as martyrs. They see them as political prisoners. Oh, it's a European guy doing a documentary. Gotcha. Okay. No, then it's completely different. Many are in jail. Yeah, but many is not really statistically significant. If you're talking about like the election, not statistically, it's nothing. You're talking maybe how many arrests have there been? 1,200 or definitely over 1,000, right? That's literally like a statistical zero in terms of like, even if all of those people suddenly lost their ability to vote, if all those people like just didn't vote, it wouldn't make a difference. Yeah, the very peaceful tourist visit. That's right. So we do have an update on this very important Supreme Court case that's being heard. We talked about it last week, I want to say. Supreme Court unlikely to launch preemptive strike on wealth tax proposals. The Supreme Court on Tuesday, today, sounded skeptical of a conservative-backed bid to preemptively block. I don't agree, but Trump muddies the waters in terms of what? Yeah, definitely over 1,200 were charged. Yeah, and even if all of those people didn't vote, it don't make a difference. The Supreme Court on Tuesday sounded skeptical of a conservative-backed bid to preemptively block Congress from ever passing a tax on wealth. The conservative and liberal justices asked tough questions of a lawyer representing a Washington state couple seeking to throw out a one-time repatriation tax on big companies' overseas earnings. That tax is arcane but important provision of Republicans' 2017 tax bill, which largely cuts taxes. But some wealthy Americans and pro-business groups are hoping to use that case as a vehicle to kill off more than the repatriation tax. They have urged a broad ruling that would slam the legal door on any prospect of a wealth tax, a proposal that is gaining popularity on the left but also raises constitutional questions. The court took the case in June, and amid intense scrutiny of some conservative justices' relationship with billionaires who use their fortunes to advance political agendas focused on lowering taxes and reining in the role of the federal government. But on Tuesday, today, the justice repeatedly questioned the distinction to lawyer for the taxpayers, Andrew Grossman, attempted to draw between the repatriation tax and other taxes that have long been on the books. Quote, "Why is this different?" said Justice Kagan. "There's a long century-old history of these kind of taxes. However, some GOP-appointed justices, particularly Neil Gorsuch and Samuel Alito, seemed wary of an unalloyed victory for the government and appeared to be pushing for an outcome that would preserve latitude for the court to limit federal taxing powers in a future case." Gorsuch told Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar that the government's argument seems to allow federal authorities to declare almost anything to be income and tax it. "I'm just asking what the limits of your arguments are, and it seems to me there are none," he said, saying that it was a big door he was unwilling to leave open. "That door is already open," Prelogar responded, citing a series of Supreme Court precedents giving the federal government a broad authority to tax various kinds of investments. By the end of the 2-hour argument session, the justice seemed to be leaning towards a narrow ruling for the government, with Gorsuch repeatedly asking Prelogar how they might craft a decision in her favor that puts aside some of the thornier issues raised by the case. Earlier this year, Alito took the unusual step of publicly rejecting calls for him to step aside from the tax case because his ties to one of the lawyers representing the Washington couple. Nice! Nice! The lawyer David Rivkin interviewed Alito on a couple of occasions earlier this year for the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. In a 4-page statement released in September, Alito turned down calls from the Democratic lawmakers for him to recuse based on the interview and his relationship with Rivkin. Rivkin did not argue the case on Tuesday, leaving that task to Grossman. Both are partners at the Ohio-based law firm Baker Hostler. Rivkin was on hand and sat quietly on the far end of the table, assigned to counsel for the taxpayers. At one point, Alito seemed to go out of his way to emphasize that he was seeking to deal fairly with the arguments presented by both sides. He was also the only justice to allude to news reports about the case, which have generally focused on potential to act as preemptive strike against a future wealth tax. Well, we'll see. One of the arguments that you press most strongly, and certainly it has resonated a lot in the coverage of this case, is the adaptation of the petitioner's argument that would have far-reaching consequences, Alito said to Prelogar. So do you think that it's fair to then explore what the consequences of your argument would be? The court doesn't take many tax cases, and even fewer like this one, that raise questions on what count as income. Where's my popcorn? The couple, Charles and Kathleen Moore, complained the repatriation tax triggered a $15,000 tax bill on an investment at an Indian power tool company on which they never received any income. They say their company plowed all of its earnings back into operations. That makes the repatriation tax a levy on property, not income, they argue. And federal property taxes are effectively banned by the Constitution. Well, no, they're two separate things. Like, if you want to, twist yourself into pretzels to make that happen, so be it, but that's not how this works. If the court were to throw out the repatriation tax, big companies could receive billions in tax refunds, perhaps with interest, and a broad ruling could also preempt any possibility of Congress adopting wealth tax proposals pushed by Senator Warren and other progressives. Backed by failings of conservative groups, the Moores have asked the court to specifically take up the case to foreclose the possibility of a wealth tax. At the same time, tax watchers are concerned that the justices, who are no experts in the arcane of taxation, could inadvertently blow big holes in the code if they don't tread carefully. Yes, the 9 law wizards. These observers point to a number of long-standing provisions in the code that tax people before they actually receive income, typically in the name of trying to prevent people from dodging the IRS. Many have warned that sweeping rules against taxes on unrealized gains could throw into legal doubt scads of other sections of the code, which I think that's kind of the point, right? That's like checkmate for capital, right? The government pressed on those concerns Tuesday, pointing to a long history of taxes going back to the inauguration of the income tax. Prelogar said it's difficult to draw lines between those provisions and the repatriation tax. A ruling for the Moors could create havoc. It would cause a sea change in the operation of the tax code and cost trillions of dollars in lost tax revenue. Alito noted that that the tax in question covers income dating back 30 years, and he questioned whether at some point a tax purportedly on income might functionally be on one on wealth. Let's say somebody graduates from school and starts up a little business in his garage, and 20 years later, 30 years later, that person's a billionaire. Alito said, under your argument, can Congress tax all of that on the ground that is income? I mean, in my opinion, yeah, that's how it should be. Yeah, dude. Prelogar called that a harder question, adding, "We don't have the same tradition to support Congress levying income taxes in that manner." Among the court's 6 Republican appointees, Kavanaugh sounded the most untroubled by the government's position in the case. He dismissed some of his colleagues' concerns about a broad-based wealth tax as ungrounded in political reality. On the proverbial open door, members of Congress want to get reelected, Kavanaugh said, triggering laughter in the courtroom. Some of the hypos. That's why they're so far-fetched. A ruling is expected in late June of next year, so we'll pay attention to it. Yeah, ruling in June of 2024. So that's basically like 6 months from now, 7 months from now. All right. Before we finish these articles, we got mandolin stuff. Yeah, not long before the election. Whew. Man, next year is already lining up to be wild. What do you think of Project 2025? Terrifying. Terrifying. I think it's terrifying, and I think we should take it seriously. They mean it. They're not kidding. They're not playing around. Should they find themselves in a situation where they could do this, they will. I mean, all the biggest conservative groups are behind this, and they've outlined in pretty long detail as to how they're gonna do this. I believe it was just over 900 pages. So they're not messing around. All right, let me grab the mandolin really quick. And I shall be right back. Yeah. So strategically speaking, what's the move given Project 2025 and how the Dems are behaving? Whew. Um. That's a good question. That is a good question. Because in reality, like if it is the case that we're facing if we're facing that how do I put this? Things begin to look a lot less TOS friendly. How about that? Joe. I've got my kiddo here to listen. Hey, welcome. See if I can figure something out, yeah? Okay, so I'm using like an even better cheat sheet. Because this one actually gives you keys. This actually gives you like keys, so you can choose to do like let's say okay, so yeah, that sounds like it's moving. Hope the kiddo's doing all right. I feel like I want a fourth chord. So we have this one. No, that's not right. Had a great birthday. That's awesome. Let's see. I need another one. What's another chord that could actually work here? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I think that's it. I think that sounds like a chord, like a riff. Hmm. Ah. Oh, hey, that's another one. Let's see if I can remember. Hmm. It should be. No, that doesn't make sense. I was trying to actually rewrite one of my songs in the mandolin, but I don't think that makes sense. At least I can't remember the right chords. But hey. Okay, it was close. That's another riff. I kind of like this one though. There you go. Okay, I'll go with that one. That's my riff. All right. There you go. Strategically speaking, are people willing to vote for Biden given the alternative? I mean, they're basically banking on that, which is completely nonsense to me. Unless the Electoral College votes for Trump, everyone outside of Twitch or that likes Trump say vote for Biden. Harris only safe choice. Well, we don't know that, right? That's the problem. And I also don't know if that's the only safe choice, nor do I think that is 100% true. We don't really have that choice, right? We're not being given that choice. It had the vibe of Buccarini duet from Master and Commander, but up tempo and jazzed up. Yeah, that probably comes from blues and punk background that I have, because I always do things very up tempo. Like that's naturally my go-to is up tempo. All right, we got a few things to finish up here. House likely to vote next week to formalize its impeachment, Biden impeachment inquiry. The Biden crime family is finally going to be held to account. Republican leaders said on Tuesday today that the House will likely vote to formalize their impeachment inquiry into the president next week. The last week, the chamber is scheduled to be in session before lawmakers leave for the holidays. There is a small possibility the vote could take place this week, but Majority Leader Steve Scalise and Majority Whip both said that the vote, if it does happen, would occur next week as the leaders left a closed-door meeting of House Republicans. On September 12th, former Speaker McCarthy unilaterally launched an impeachment inquiry into Biden over his family business dealings after Republicans, with their thin majority, conceded they didn't have the votes to pass it on the floor. But Republicans have grown frustrated by the White House argument that they don't need to comply with some subpoenas because the White House did not take a formal vote authorizing the inquiry into Biden's family business dealings. Speaker Mike Johnson, who was a constitutional lawyer before entering Congress, and other Republicans now argued that they need to take this inquiry vote to be able to challenge the White House in court, even as Biden officials maintained that nothing from the GOP probe has supported allegations of wrongdoing by the president. We've come to this sort of inflection point because the White House is stonewalling that investigation. They're refusing to turn over key witnesses to allow them to testify as they've been subpoenaed. They're refusing to turn over thousands of documents from the national... Like, bro, wait a minute. I thought you said that there was evidence. I thought you said that there was evidence. Now it's... Well, no, we actually have to go find the evidence to support the crime. Man, phenomenal stuff. Will VP Harris be impeached? No, this is strictly against Biden right now. And the House has no choice. If it's going to follow its constitutional responsibility to formally adopt an impeachment inquiry on the floor, so when the subpoenas are challenged in court, we're at the apex of our constitutional authority. This vote is not a vote to impeach the president. This is a vote to continue the inquiry of impeachment, and that is a necessary constitutional step. The new comments come as leaders have projected growing confidence that they have the votes to officially launch the impeachment investigation. A handful of vulnerable moderates who previously had expressed strong reservations about an impeachment inquiry say they now support it due to the White House's intransigence. When the White House now says it does need to provide some requested info because there's no formal inquiry, then we do need an inquiry. Yep, all right, whatever. There have been 18 GOP Biden districts, but the New York Republican George Santos was expelled from the House last week, leaving Johnson and the GOP with just a 3-seat majority. Others informal in that group, including Representatives Nick LaLota and John Duarte, have also pledged to back an impeachment inquiry vote. I believe we have an unregistered foreign agent as president, and I'm ready to see this impeachment inquiry go forward. Asked whether he was worried about the vulnerable Republicans going on record on the inquiry, Johnson argued that the moderates in his party understand this is not a political decision. This is a legal decision. It's a constitutional decision. And whether someone is for impeachment is of no import right now. We have to continue our legal responsibility, and that is solely what this vote is about. Yeah, I mean, like, whatever, dude. Whatever you have to say. White House spokesman Ian Sams accused the Speaker and the House Republicans of following the lead of far-right Marjorie Taylor Greene, was aggressively called for the impeachment of Biden. Like, why do they make a distinction? Like, what is the point? This is all of the Republican Party is this. That's it. This is the entire circus. They're all under this umbrella. So I don't know why, like, they want to, why they continue to make the distinction, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. Comer has been everywhere saying he has evidence, not true. And the Hunter, yeah, like if it's true, then we wouldn't be having this, right? We would just be going like to showcase the evidence. But now it's not. Oh well, we need to go gather the evidence and then we'll decide the crime is. We just know he's done some weird stuff. Okay, we know he's guilty. We just need to find what he's guilty of. Americans are already overwhelmingly believe House Republicans are prioritizing the wrong things, and any vote to move ahead with Marjorie Taylor Greene's favorite pastime would reveal that she's truly calling the shots in this extreme House Republican conference. Oh, why do you think that that's any different? Why do you think that's any different between like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Speaker of the House who agrees and the entire like unified Republican Party that voted for the speakership? Like I don't understand. All these House Republicans and their colleagues should answer for why they would change tune now and go along with their basis exercise to smear President Biden when their allegations have been thoroughly fact-checked and debunked. Well, the point being is that there's no evidence right now. Despite like what they've been saying, they've yet to produce evidence. So now the story is that we need to go find the evidence, because we know he did something, we just don't know what. All right, we're getting close to time here. The evidence is for liberals, true. And the Dems will not vote to impeach President Biden anyhow. Yeah, it doesn't matter though. They have the House Republicans can vote to impeach him. But even within the House, like even within the Republicans, I don't think they're all going to. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's going to end up dying in the Senate anyways. Even if they somehow manage to push through this impeachment, it's going to die in the Senate. It's a dog and pony show. So yeah, this is happening, or this is a thing. Liz Cheney molds a third-party run to block Trump victory. I don't know how. I don't know why. I mean, I guess she could try voting, running as a third party, as an independent. But like, how? Like, who is going to be like, oh, I see Liz Cheney instead of Trump on the ballot, I'm gonna vote for her. Like, I don't know what the thought process is here. Because it's certainly, if she does launch her run as an independent, it's certainly not going to have the effect of like blocking Trump, because that's not how this works. No Republican is going to look at the ballot and see Trump's name and see her name and be like, oh wow, an alternative to Trump. Like that's not a thing that the Republican voter is going to look at. But hey, good luck. Will Liz Cheney be another Hillary Clinton but Republican flavor? I mean, she literally voted with like over 90% of Trump's agenda, so she's just a Republican. Like she's just like as bad. I don't understand. They're all like this. There's no point. There's no point in making any type of distinction. They're all like this. I seriously doubt like she would actually run independent, because like this literally means nothing. This literally means nothing. The media doesn't like Liz Cheney. Nobody should like Liz Cheney, to be fair. All right. Shifting gears really quickly, Supreme Court presses Purdue Pharma on absolving the Sackler family of opioid liabilities. The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments yesterday in a case that could decide if the billionaire Sackler family that controlled the OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma can use bankruptcy to shield their personal fortunes from future opioid-related liabilities. At the heart of the case is the power of the federal bankruptcy courts to sign off on settlement agreements that absolve parties outside the bankruptcy of legal responsibilities without consent of litigants. The agreements, known as third-party releases, have been used in bankruptcy proceedings for decades to end mass tort litigation against insolvent companies and to distribute their assets to injured victims. In exchange for release of such claims, Sacklers agreed through a series of negotiations to pay $6 billion to opioid victims and their families, as well as state and local governments. The funds are meant to compensate victims for opioid-related injuries and deaths and to help the government establish aid programs to combat opioid addiction. According to the U.S. trustee, the supermajority of personal injury claimants who voted yes to the settlement included less than 50% of those eligible to vote. Other claimants wished to opt out of the settlement agreement and retain their right to sue. During arguments, justices across the political spectrum questioned whether Congress, by passing bankruptcy law, meant to deprive personal injury victims of the right to sue third parties not subject to the bankruptcy proceedings. A fundamental bargain in bankruptcy law is you get a discharge when you put all your assets on the table to be divided among your creditors, said Justice Kagan, who was appointed by President Obama. And I think everybody thinks the Sacklers didn't come anywhere close to doing that. It'd be a kind of extraordinary thing if we gave the power to basically subvert this basic bargain in bankruptcy law. Kagan added about giving the Sacklers a discharge from future liability. On behalf of the U.S. trustee, which brought the case in its capacity as a watchdog over U.S. bankruptcy proceedings, Deputy Solicitor General Curtis Gannon argued that the kind of third-party liability release granted by Purdue bankruptcy court should be prohibited because the Sacklers are not parties to the bankruptcy and never put their funds into the bankruptcy estate. Instead, Gannon said they were transferred roughly $11 billion from Purdue to offshore accounts that they controlled. Cool. Purdue's attorney, Gregory Garr, argued that the deal was necessary to achieve the goal of bankruptcy to maximize the estate and therefore maximize recoveries to the company's creditors. Garr said that 40% of the $11 billion transferred to the Sacklers' offshore accounts went to pay taxes. Justice Ketanji Brown said the Sacklers created conditions that required the opioid litigants to have to negotiate for a return on Purdue's funds. It's only because the Sacklers have taken the money offshore, right? Said the Biden-appointed justice in response to Purdue's claim that the settlement releasing the Sacklers was needed. It is necessary to do this release because the Sacklers have taken the money and are not willing to give it back unless they have this condition. Jesus Christ. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was also skeptical of Purdue's arguments. As Jackson rightly points out, 97% of the money after tax that they've contributed is all the money that's took out of the corporation, said Barrett, who was appointed under Trump. On the other side of the argument, Sotomayor, an Obama-appointed justice, expressed concern that outlawing the agreement could undermine the parties' freedom to contract as they see fit. She noted that a supermajority of claimants, which is required for mass tort settlements reached in bankruptcy, had agreed to the deal. Under bankruptcy law, Sotomayor said courts are supposed to maximize the estate and effectuate successful organizations. It seems, though, as the federal government is standing in the way of that, as against the huge majority of claimants who have decided this is the provision, that if this provision goes under, they're going to end up with nothing. In an email to Yahoo Finance, Purdue said, "We were pleased to have had the opportunity to demonstrate before the Supreme Court that Purdue's plan of reorganization is solidly grounded in legal precedent. Our creditors who insisted on third-party releases at the issue and overwhelmingly support our plan further underscored to the court that this plan is the only way to deliver billions of dollars towards life-saving opiate abatement programs and victim compensation. Yeah, whatever, dudes. Purdue filed for bankruptcy protection in September 2019 under the pressure of thousands of lawsuits, government and individual lawsuits. The suits blamed Purdue for the fueling of opioid crisis. At the time of the bankruptcy petition, the company agreed to relinquish control of the company and said the proceeding would provide $10 billion in value to its creditors. In July of 2021, the Sacklers reached an agreement with 15 states and local governments that had previously declined to settle. The deal ended roughly 3,000 lawsuits in exchange for the Sacklers' agreement to pay $4.3 billion and to make roughly 33 million documents that had been kept secret under attorney-client privilege. The High Court agreed to take up the dispute in August after a federal trial court and divided federal appeals court came to a different ruling on whether the New York Federal Bankruptcy Court that greenlighted the deal had the authority to release the Sackler family from the opioid-related liabilities. No fancy match should keep you from paying your due. Exactly. State attorneys generals have also accused the Sacklers of transferring millions of dollars from the company leading up to the bankruptcy. They say the maneuver is an abuse of bankruptcy law that stripped Purdue of funds that could have been used to compensate opioid victims. To date, none of the Sackler family members have filed for bankruptcy. In 2020, Purdue pleaded guilty to 3 felony charges brought by the Justice Department for illegally marketing opioids. The U.S. trustee argued that the liability released for the Sacklers forcibly extinguished the property rights of opioid litigants who did not wish to settle their claims. According to the trustee, 3% of the claimants wished to opt out of the settlement. Purdue's lawyers said the net worth of small numbers Sackler family members who served as directors and officers of the company in the U.S. is roughly $1.2 billion. Wild. A decision is expected this summer. This summer, I mean, I'm thinking next year. FBI director calls for renewal of key surveillance tool. FBI Director Christopher Wray urged Congress on Tuesday, today, to renew a surveillance law that provides most intelligence that lands on the president's desk each day. Wray made his plea in testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Many Republicans have opposed a renewal of the law, Section 702 of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which expires December 31st, as part of a crusade against the FBI and Justice Department, which they allege have been weaponized against conservatives. Like, in a weird twist of events, in a way to, I guess, own the libs, which is really weird because, like, the guy who's asking for this extension was appointed by Trump. So that's funny. Wray pointed to threats from Iran and China to argue that surveillance powers under the law serve a crucial role for U.S. national security interests. Yeah, whatever, dude. When it comes to a foreign adversary like Iran, whose actions across a whole host of threats have grown more brazen, seeking to assassinate high-level officials, kidnap dissidents, conduct cyber attacks here in the U.S., or the People's Republic of China, which poses a generational threat to our economic and national security, stripping the FBI of its 702 authorities would be a formal unilateral disarmament. Wray said the surveillance law is key to our ability to detect a foreign terrorist organization overseas and directing an operative here to carry out an attack in our own backyard. Given the critical importance of 702, we are committed to being a good steward of our authority. Phenomenal. To that end, I've ordered a whole host of changes to address unacceptable compliance incidents. Wray said he has been more encouraged by recent data from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court that show a 98% compliance rate and observes that the reforms are having the desired effect. He also cited 2 recent Department of Justice semi-annual reports that show a greater than 98% compliance rate. Concluding his opening remarks, Wray noted that before the terrorist attack on September 11, well-intentioned policymakers made the choice to build a wall preventing access to national security information sitting in our partners' holdings. Okay? He stressed that allowing 702 to lapse or amending it in a way that undermines its effectiveness will begin to lay the bricks for another 9/11. Jesus. As the threats from foreign adversaries to our homeland continue to evolve, the agility and effectiveness of 702 will be essential to the FBI's ability and really our mandate from the American people to keep them safe for years to come, and we owe it to them to make sure we got the tools that we need to do that. And, okay. Yeah, vague, sweeping, constitutional, We don't want to talk about that part. All right, folks. We made it. It's that time. I got to get going, folks. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael Haster. Thank you, Heat. Thank you for the biddies. And thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the follows. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate it. Don't forget, folks, if you haven't done so already, hit the follow button. It really does help us out. Join us on the YouTubes. Spread the word far and wide. We're here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, join the Discord. Join the Discord. Join the Discord. Join the Discord. Have I said to join the Discord yet? Yeah, join the Discord. We'll be back tomorrow, folks. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Quick shout-outs to Globus the Elder and Aliosher, the diamonds in chat. Thank you to the mods. Thank you, Heath. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Christmas is gonna rock. That's right. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Join the Discord. See ya. Sorry, folks. Give me a second. All right, folks. Hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.